Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Iole from Yahoo Sports. UFC 222 is in the books, and it was another good show. Chris Cyborg did her thing in the main event. I don't think anybody was too shocked by that. She stopped Yana Kunitskaya in the first round. She dropped Yana several times, I think at least 3 times, including really with the first punch she threw in the fight. A big right hand dropped Yana. Yana tried to make it a fight. She grabbed on Chris. She put her in the clinch, held her up against the cage, but Chris Cyborg's power is just too much, and we've got to get to see her against somebody that can compete with her. And I don't know that there are a lot of women out there that can. Her power is unbelievable, and she's a fairly well-rounded fighter too. She showed herself to be a big-time puncher last night. We all knew that. She's going to fight Amanda Nunes later this year, the bantamweight champion. On the one hand, I'm disappointed because she continues to fight, fighters from the 135-pound division, but there's nobody really available right now. And I think Nunes is the fighter who has the best chance to bring out the best out of Cyborg. And, maybe we can see an epic fight with that. But to me, UFC 222 was really not about that night, but it was about the future, because you saw in that card a number of really good young fighters. I wrote about some of these fighters. Mackenzie Dern, she wasn't overly impressive, but she has the best jiu-jitsu credentials of anybody now in the UFC, really of anybody in MMA. She went out, she defeated Ashley Yoder. She's a work in progress, but she's 24 years old, fighting at that strawweight division. She's 6-0 with 3 finishes, and she learns her striking game, and it was rudimentary last night, let's be honest. She has a chance to be a star. She's got a good personality. She's got an unbelievable skill. It's kind of like her jiu-jitsu skill is sort of what Ronda Rousey's judo skill was coming into MMA. So Mackenzie has a chance to be a star. Sean O'Malley, of course, he got a lot of hype before the fight, the bantamweight. He won his fight last night. He injured his leg. His leg got kicked out from underneath him by Andre Sukumthoth. He went down. It looked like he might have broken his leg. Dana White said at the post-fight press conference he had not. The x-rays were negative, but he had to be stretchered out of there, and he was in horrible pain, yet he didn't give up. He had dominated the first 2 rounds of the fight, comes out in the 3rd round, got kicked and went down, but he hung in there, and he has that charisma, and he has the great unorthodox striking. People like to watch him fight. He's got a chance to be a star. And, of course, Bryan Ortega. Holy cow, what did he do to Frankie Edgar? He became the first fighter to knock Frankie Edgar out. Became 14-0. He is going to fight Max Holloway next for the title. And that got me thinking, look at the embarrassment of riches the UFC has in under 30-year-old fighters. Really, a lot of them under 25 years old. But, I don't have enough time to go through all the good fighters. I think the roster is deeper now than ever. Now, there's been a lot of stories and a lot of talk about the cards aren't very good, the cards aren't deep, they're not selling a lot of pay-per-views, and hey, that's true. In the last, 15 months, 16 months, there hasn't been a million sale pay-per-view. The 2 biggest pay-per-views of 2017, what do you see in common here? You saw UFC 214, Jones versus Cormier, UFC 217, Bisping versus GSP. Well, the stars of those shows aren't in the UFC anymore. John Jones is suspended. Who knows how long he's going to be out. GSP won the title from Michael Bisping, walked away, and Bisping, who did a great job promoting that fight, has one more fight until he retires. And so the numbers on the pay-per-views haven't been the numbers that we expected in the Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey era. They were able to get 1 million pay-per-views. So when you had them fight 4 or 5 times a year combined, the UFC had these massive cards 4 or 5 times a year, and then you could fill in from there. And when you added in a Jones or somebody like that, it made for a lot of pay-per-view sales and created interest. Jones isn't fighting. GSP is not fighting. Rousey apparently done. McGregor hasn't fought since 2016 in MMA. Not sure when we're going to see him back. So the numbers are off. Not surprising. But the fight game is a cyclical game, and anybody knows that always new stars arise. It happened in boxing. You know, when Muhammad Ali retired, everybody was saying, well, that's it for boxing. And then you had the rise of Sugar Ray Leonard, followed by the rise of Mike Tyson, followed by Oscar De La Hoya, and there's always new stars to come. And I started thinking, look at these great fighters and developing potential great fighters the UFC has. Next month, Khabib Nurmagomedov is fighting Tony Ferguson for the lightweight title at UFC 223. Khabib, if he beats Tony Ferguson, and that is going to be one heck of a fight. Khabib has a chance to be an amazing level star. He's 25-0 right now. If he beats Tony Ferguson, he's going to be a huge star. I mean, very big. But there's a lot of guys that are under 30 and under 25. Darren Till at welterweight. He's 16-0-1 with 12 finishes. He's 25 years old. Israel Adesanya, we just saw him at UFC 221. He's 12-0 with 12 finishes. He looks like he is going to be something. I mentioned O'Malley. He's 10-0 with 7 finishes now. Mackenzie Dern, Bryan Ortega, middleweight Paulo Costa. He is 26 years old. He's 11-0 with 11 finishes. Zabit Magomedsharipov, he is a 145er. He's 27 years old. He's showing signs. He's a Russian from Dagestan. He's showing signs that he could be a top-level fighter. There are so many of these good young fighters on the way up, and not all of them are going to be stars, but some of them are going to develop into stars. And I think what you'll see from the rest of them is that they'll give depth to the cards that are out there. So we're not going to say, oh, we don't like this card. There's one good fight on the card. There's going to be a lot of good fights because there's a lot of competition out there. So I think, you know, that the series, the Dana White Contender Series, Dana White Looking for a Fight, these web series, along with the Ultimate Fighter, are bringing young talent into the UFC. And, you know, Sage Northcutt is a guy, and he's only 21 years old, 21 years old. He still has a chance to develop into something. Sometimes we get impatient. We think, you know, they have one bad performance and they're done. They can't. They're not exposed. They're young fighters. There's trials and tribulation. You learn along the way. I think the UFC is in a really good place. They're still not going to sell 1 million pay-per-views anytime soon, but that may not be all that far away when Khabib, you know, if Khabib, I should say, it's no given he beats Tony Ferguson. If he wins that title, you know, he's going to become very big. If McGregor comes back, and if some of these other fighters develop. So you always have to watch that. I think that the UFC future was on display to a large degree at the show. Ketlin Vieira beat Kat Zingano. She's a good young prospect who may fit in the title mix before too much longer. Women's bantamweight division. There's so many good fighters. So I think it's something to pay attention to. Go through the roster, and when you see the cards coming up, look at how many 25, 26, 27-year-olds are performing at a very high level and how many of those could develop into stars. I think you'll be surprised at how many it is. I hope you enjoyed the show last night. Really looking forward to UFC 223. That's going to be a great one. I'll have plenty of coverage of that. Believe me, I'll have Tony Ferguson. I'll have Khabib on here for interviews. We're going to keep this going. I appreciate you joining me. I'm Kevin Iole from Yahoo Sports.